It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Hello, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the Phil Ferguson Show. This is show number 221. A little later in the show, we will talk to Kevin-Bolling. He is the brand new executive director for the Secular Student Alliance. So hang on, you're going to enjoy that. Before we get to that, I've got a couple of things about investments. One, I'm going to talk about something that has challenged me for quite a while to really wrap my head around it. And I think I now understand it enough to talk about it. And that's a thing called infinite banking. So we're going to talk about a policy or a process, I guess, called infinite banking. I've had multiple people ask me about it over the years, and someone just asked about it again, and I thought, I'll dig back into it and read about it. And I've done some research, and I'm going to give you that information. The other thing I want to do before I get into that is I've often have people have concerns about the future of Social Security. And someone sent me a link to a story, and it was interesting. It was a local news item, but that headline is, Social Security Trust Fund projected to tap out in 17 years. So when I read that headline, that sounds to me like in 17 years, and just for reference, I'm 50, so I'm hoping in 12 years I can start collecting Social Security at 62. But in 17 years, just 5 years after I start, it's tapped out, gone, zero. So that was very interesting. I'd not heard that before. So I dug into the story, and even in the context of this story, all that it's saying is that it cites a report that says in 17 years, premiums would have to be cut, or the payments would have to be cut by 23%. So it's not that it goes to zero. You would lose 23%. Now, that's 17 years from now. And for a long period of time now, I don't know how long it's been, but probably for decades, there have been concerns about Social Security running out, in a couple of decades. So this is not a new position that we're in. It's an unfortunate position that we're in. And often people think that the money they put aside belongs to them and they're going to get it back. That's really not how it works. Can this be fixed? Yeah. One way that it could be fixed is that if we have slightly stronger economic growth and it continues going forward, more people putting more money into Social Security, or the government getting more tax revenue, would solve the vast majority, if not all, of this problem. But of course, sometimes you get recessions, and that creates a problem. Another thing we could do, this is interesting, is that if you increase the number of workers paying into Social Security by growing the economy, and perhaps by allowing more people in who want jobs and can take jobs, and you grow the economy so that the base of people paying in versus the number of people that are taking money out improves. Another way, of course, is to increase the Social Security tax that people pay. I'm sure very few people are going to be fond of that idea. Another one is to raise the limit. You may not know this, but somewhere around $115,000 or $120,000 of personal income, you stop paying Social Security. So if you make $500,000 a year, and I know that's not very many of the listeners, that's not very many of anybody, but if you make $500,000, you pay Social Security up to the annual limit. Let's just say it's $120,000. I didn't actually look. My apologies. But everything you make beyond that, you pay no Social Security. So if you increase that limit, you would collect more money. Another possibility, of course, would be to delay the starting age of when you get Social Security, have smaller annual increases in the rate of growth of Social Security. And one of my ideas, and I like this personally, is that you lower the age to get into Social Security. Right now it's 62. But if you could make it 60 or 55, but of course you would get a smaller amount. But it might be enough that would help some people retire earlier, and they would start collecting a smaller amount, but the total amount that they get by the age of 80 wouldn't increase any. So that might be a nice way to help people into retirement without costing the system anything. Another thing is to stretch out the maximum age from 65 to 68, depending on the year that you're born, up to 69 or 70, so that you delay. Or you could use a teeny little bit of both. You could tweak up taxes. You could extend the upper limit on income levels that get taxed. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So there's nothing dire, but we probably do need a change in philosophy, at least from the people that get elected, because currently the Republican Party is not a big thing on social services. So if you like Social Security, if you want it to continue, you have to think really hard about not voting for Republicans. At least that's my opinion. And if you think that's totally wrong, send me an email. I might actually read it. That's Phil at Polaris Financial Planning. And now I'm going to talk about infinite banking. Like a lot of things in finance or investing, it gets complicated really quickly. The first thing I want to point out is that I saw two different ideas that have the same name, infinite banking. So one I'm going to cover really briefly, and then the other one I'm going to go into more detail. The first one is often, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos on this, which may not be a wise thing to get information from on this, but that's what I did. Infinite banking, they talk about there's people who are borrowers, and they borrow money and then slowly pay their debts off. And they borrow money and they slowly pay their debts off. And of course, I don't recommend that. And then there's the savers, and that's people who save money and then buy what they want and go to zero. And then they save money and they buy what they want and they go to zero. And clearly that's not good either. And of course, they point out that after 30, 40, 50 years, you end up in the same place of zero. Of course, the borrower had to pay interest the whole way, and the saver didn't. But in the end, you pretty much end up in the same place, or at least pretty close to it. And neither one of them is particularly attractive to me. So the other idea is that you save up money, and then you take a loan against that money somehow, or you use it as collateral to get a loan, which I don't have a problem with. If you can make more money with your money and borrow something somewhere else, I like that. Matter of fact, this is very, very similar to what I have suggested all along, as an example with me buying a car. Now, for most people, I do recommend that you get a used car. It's much more economical. But if you find yourself in a position in life where you're saving your 20% every year and you're well on your way on the path to retirement and being fully funded, and you want to buy a new car, whatever. But as long as interest rates are 1.9% or something along those amounts, why pay $20,000 or $30,000 down for a car, even if you have the cash, when that money could theoretically make you 6, 8, 10% or more in a portfolio in the stock market when you can borrow the money at 2%. And so that I'm in favor of. And so when they talk about infinite banking that way, it's kind of like what I say. It's all about maximizing the value of your money. If your money can make 10% for you in the long run and you can borrow it for 2% in the short run, that's great. If we get to a point in time where a car loan is 8 or 10 or 12 or 14%, or if that's something that's because of your credit rating issues, you have to do that. Well, you don't want to borrow money at 14% when you're investing it at 10. So it makes sense to take money out and pay for the car loan. So that's one way of infinite banking, and it's not the norm, but I've also found that. What they normally mean by infinite banking is using a whole life insurance policy. And you get a whole life insurance policy, and you put a whole bunch of money in it, and as that money grows, you can then take loans out against your own whole life insurance policy, use that and then pay back interest to yourself. And so you become your own banker. That's one of the things that I've seen on many sites. Now, before I get too much into this, I do want to make sure that I'm really, really clear on this. I am not recommending that you do this. Matter of fact, I am recommending that you do not do this. So if you don't want to listen to the next 10 minutes or so, that's the short answer. Don't do it. Are there exceptions? Maybe. Is it possible to make this work? Maybe. It's really, really difficult, and you're going to spend a lot of time and effort. So I'm not very excited about it. Some places have argued that it is basically a way for an insurance salesperson to make insurance sound better than it is and increase their sales and commissions. I am looking at a blog that I found that did a really nice summary. So if you want to read even more and see details and calculations, the blog that I'm going to do some quoting from is written by Jacob Irwin, and it's called My Personal Finance Journey. And the title of the post I'm looking at is the infinite banking strategy using whole life insurance right for you? So if you want to go read that, and I want to make sure that I give Jacob Irwin credit here, that I will probably be reading some quotes from his blog post and borrowing some of the information because he did a fantastic job of researching this and presenting it. So if you want to read more about it, you can go there. That'll be my go-to. When I went to official, and I've got my radio scare quotes up, when I went to official infinite banking websites, every single one of them would talk about how awesome it is, but never give me any details. They would sell me a book or send me a pamphlet, or I could sign up to be contacted by an official representative or an official salesperson that is promoting this strategy. And that wasn't what I wanted. I just wanted the information. And so in my life, one of the first things is that if I have to start paying money to get the information, I lose a lot of interest. And if I have to talk to a commissioned salesperson to learn more about it, well, there's a potential inherent conflict in that situation. So let's dig in a little bit about infinite banking. So the first thing that you would have to do is have a whole life policy. And a whole life means that you would pay an amount per year, and that policy would generally last forever. Of course, I have issues with life insurance to begin with, and a lot of that comes from the trickiness of it. You think you have it forever, but it might say at the age of 85, we're going to cash you out because we don't have, we don't allow you to stay in past that date because we're so certain that we're going to pay you out that we're just going to cash you out. Life insurance also is often built on assumptions and all the calculations that underlie that. They're not always the most clear on what the costs are and how that works. And matter of fact, the guy that I'm citing, My Personal Finance Journey, he spent 100 hours researching this. I spent under 10, probably under 5. He read half a dozen books. He met with insurance people. He met with different financial advisors. He had scenarios set up. And so what you would have to do is get a whole life policy, and you have to get one that pays a really good fixed dividend. It cannot be a variable policy. And a lot of insurance people are going to be tempted to sell you a variable policy because it promises greater rewards and it promises them greater commissions. So that's the first problem. So you need to have one that's, what he put in his blog, properly structured. Now they went through, or he went through history and found out that a lot of these policies can pay 4 to 4.5%. That has not been my experience recently. And this blog post, by the way, was written in 2013. And interest rates have gone down from there, and they're really low. And I can't see 4.5% being a reasonable rate to assume going forward, because those calculations include like the last 40, 50, 60 years. I don't think going forward you're going to get that kind of fixed rate. Matter of fact, I've seen policies, people have given me policies that have guaranteed rates between 0 and 1%. They can actually guarantee you nothing. That's amazing. So, first of all, I don't think you're going to get the 4.5%. Then the other thing that you have to make sure that you do is make sure that the money you're borrowing is at a variable rate and or a fixed rate that is lower than the fixed rate that you're getting from the money. Because when you take money out of the policy, it's not earning money, or if it is earning money, then the interest you pay doesn't go back to your account. It goes to the insurance company. Now, I've also seen places where they say when you borrow the money, you pay yourself back. Well, that may be true. So you borrow $1,000 and you pay 5% interest. That goes back into your account. But then the insurance company charges you 5% to get your money back, interest on the account. So you're paying yourself back, but you're also paying them out of the cash value. So you have to make sure that all of that lines up and that the rate you're borrowing money at is lower than what you could get somewhere else, or than the fees that you're getting from the insurance policy. The other thing is, of course, you have an insurance policy that you may not need, and you have to pay all of the insurance premiums to have this. The other thing that's amazing is that often a whole life policy has very, very poor returns, even though they might promise 4.5 in the long run. It might take you 30 or 40 or 50 years to average out. So the guy who wrote up the post at My Personal Finance Journey, he collected some specific data for policies specifically for him. Now, this may not apply to you. It's just an example. But he found out that over the first 5 to 7 years, you make less than the 4.5%. And it might even take 8 to 20 years, depending on the specific policy, for you to break even for what you could have done somewhere else. And then it starts to get better. So if at any time you decide to not have the policy, you lose money. If you stop paying or can't pay, you could lose the policy, or it could have a big fee or expense. So you have to do a lot of things exactly right. And there's a lot of baggage that goes with it. You have to make sure that every little thing is right. And so that can take an awful lot of research. He finally did an example of saying, well, instead of getting this loan, what if I just put it into a nice Vanguard index fund? Now, he compared it to the Vanguard short-term tax-exempt bond fund, which has, at least had a historical rate of return of 4.05% after taxes. That is not what it's going to be going forward, because of what I talked about before. Interest rates are really low. If you get more than 1 to 1.25%, 1.5% out of that, I'd be surprised. But the calculation is still relevant compared to the assumptions in the whole life policy scenario that he did. And in the end, when you consider taxes, when you consider expenses from the insurance company, when you consider the value of the money that you might be able to pass on to your descendants, which is generally one of the reasons people have life insurance, the results are almost the exact same. So even when you do everything right, it's still really hard to make any money at it. So his conclusion was that it's too complicated, and I agree, and that it's going to be very hard for you to do it correctly, and it's very hard to understand. And when you often sign up for life insurance, the contract can be 50, 80. I've even seen one with 150 plus pages. Very, very difficult for you to understand. So that's kind of how it works. You can borrow money from yourself and pay the interest to yourself, but there's often other fees and penalties associated with it, other costs associated with it, so it doesn't work out. And it definitely doesn't work out in a time period where you can invest in the market and theoretically, in the long run, make 10 and borrow money for a car at 1.9. You can borrow money for your house at probably 4.25, and interest rates for long-term home loans are low today. So there's much more value, and those loans can be a little easier if your credit score is high and if you have assets that you can show that you can pay it back. So I'm going to stick with my philosophy, but since some people have asked about infinite banking, that's kind of the logic behind it. And we're going to take a little break and go into our interview.
Hey you, it's me. Sarah Silverman. You know, lately I've noticed a lot of really sad, really long commercials on TV with like grossy, sick, emaciated people from all over the world. And it turns out they look that way because they don't have food. And I know what you're thinking. If you don't like it, Silverman, TiVo passed it. I did. You still see them. Especially because, like, I have a 48-inch plasma high-def TV. So every devastating image is in, like, brilliant, crisp, vivid, like they're in my apartment, you know. So how do I get these people out of my apartment, basically? And I think I figured it out. Like, all I have to do is end world hunger. And then I'm like, okay, how are you going to end world hunger? And then it hit me. Sell the Vatican, feed the world. Think about it. We need a hero, and who is more primed to be our hero than the Pope? He's literally a caped crusader. What is the Vatican worth, like $500 billion? This is great. Sell the Vatican, take a big chunk of that money, build a gorgeous condominium for you and all of your friends to live in, all the amenities, swimming pool, tennis court, water slide. And with the money left over, feed the whole fucking world. You preach to live humbly, and I totally agree. So now maybe it's time for you to move out of your house that is a city. On an ego level alone, you will be the biggest hero in the history of ever. And by the way, any involvement in the Holocaust, bygones. I know some of you out there are like, well, why don't those bums get a job like the rest of us? Well, did you know that the average Arby's employee in Ethiopia only gets paid nothing an hour because they don't have one. They don't have one. The bottom line is this. If you sell the Vatican and you take that money and you use it to feed every single human being on the planet, you will get crazy pussy. All the pussy. And I don't mean literally. That might not be your cup of tea. I don't know what your version of all the pussy is. But you'll get all the pussy. Amen.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Phil Ferguson, and of course, you're still listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. With me today, I have Kevin-Bolling. He is the new Executive Director for the Secular Student Alliance. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be on.
And so, do I understand you're moving from California to Columbus?
I am not. I've been spending a lot of time in Columbus.
Okay.
Clearly, the national office for the Secular Student Alliance is here in Ohio. And so I've been a lot of time with the staff and with August. And we will actually be moving sometime this fall. There's no definite timeline yet. The office to Los Angeles.
Oh, gosh, I stumbled across that awkwardly. I did not know that information.
No, that's quite all right. I don't think that's a secret that we're trying to keep. I think all through the process we realized there's a lot of resources that we can take advantage of in the Los Angeles area, and so to help the organization and the movement in general. So I think we're going to try to do that.
Well, that is very exciting news. So, listeners, you probably heard it here first. The Secular Student Alliance is moving to L.A. That'll give me just another reason to move to Los Angeles. How's that sound?
Well, there you go. We need everyone there.
Yeah, I think everyone already is there.
There's a good number. That's true.
At least everyone has a car. I know that for a fact.
That is definitely true, yes.
I was out there about a year ago for a speaking tour, and sometimes I would drive 20 miles, and it would take 60 to 80 minutes. And people said, yeah, 3 to 4 minutes per mile is pretty good. So
yeah. I think the constant thing is how long will it take me to get there? Oh, 30 minutes. That's the standard answer in Los Angeles. It's not true, but it's the answer.
Well, if you're not going far, I think that'll cover you. Where I used to live in Champaign, people would answer not in miles, but in time, but they meant it, so 30 minutes would be 30 plus miles away.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So a little bit of difference. So they're going to move to LA. Do you have a location yet, or is this just kind of in the works?
It's all in the works at the moment. So we don't have a location yet, and there's not an exact timeline yet. I think my big focus and the staff of the Secular Student Alliance is really making sure that we have a great kickoff to the school year. So end of August and big in September are clearly a very busy time for us, and a time when we are working with the student organizations as they are sort of restarting their campuses. So that's going to be our major focus. And then in August, we will be doing our kickoff to our scholarship program. So SSA offers a number of scholarships. We also have one that coordinates with the historically black colleges and universities. And then we actually help co-facilitate a couple of other scholarships for some of the other secular organizations as well that are geared towards high school and college students. So the summer really for us is of August and September is still going to be very busy. So that's our primary focus. And then we'll sort of worry about the transition to Los Angeles.
Excellent. Now, I understand you're coming from the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles, and you were the director of philanthropy there. What exactly did you do, and how does that apply to the SSA, if you don't mind?
No, not at all. I was actually volunteering with the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles for probably just over a decade, and was on staff for 2 years. And so the director of philanthropy is a somewhat misleading title. I was heavily involved, of course, in the fundraising and fund development, with major donors and foundations and those sorts of things. So definitely bring that experience to the Secular Student Alliance. And with that, I was also heavily involved in the social media, the marketing and outreach, and then also with the youth outreach program. So I think if people are familiar with a gay men's chorus in their particular area, they're used to sort of the music and concerts. GMCLA has a long tradition of arts advocacy and youth outreach. So for the last 10 years, they've had a program reaching out to middle and high schools to do anti-bullying work, general diversity work, LGBT education, and music education. And so over the 10 years, they've reached over about 60,000 students. There's also a tour that goes across the United States for the last 4 years, goes in for a week-long residency, and again, working with schools and colleges, elected officials, community leaders, to help transform communities so they're more accepting and celebratory of all of their youth. And of course, particularly LGBT youth. And then it ends with a musical presentation, so based on the It Gets Better project. And so I was also integral in starting up one of GMCLA's newest youth outreach programs, going into the youth juvenile system, youth correctional system in Los Angeles, and doing music education work and, of course, LGBT history work in that particular population. So I also bring a long history of social justice and equality work to the Secular Student Alliance from that experience as well.
Well, and there's so many things I could go off from in there in a positive way. I mean, but let me start with one that you just ended with is, the social justice, and particularly I'm looking at some of the comments that you had at the summer conference that just ended for the Secular Student Alliance. And it has a couple of bullet points here, and I'm hoping they accurately reflect what you said, is that, this young generation, the college students and the high school students, they recognize some of these values that women are equal and we should treat them equal, and that a room full of men are not the ones best to make decisions about women's health care, and that we need to take action against racism and institutionalized racism. And I like this, of course, love is love is love. If it doesn't hurt you, what does it matter? Let people love whoever they want to, however they want to. What are your thoughts about that and how students took your messages?
There were a lot of positive comments from the students after that sort of speech, and it was my sort of introduction speech, and August, who of course has a long history with the organization, his sort of farewell. So it was a poignant moment, I think, in the conference. But I think for the students who are involved in the secular movements, they clearly get how integral, the secular movement is with other progressive movements. And I think they completely understand it, as you sort of mentioned, once you sort of, for most part, take away that religious shed, we realize that, we're all the same, and we are, if we have the common opponent, we're much better if we're working together to, move our society along and to do better. And so the students many of the students I spoke with shared great stories about what they're doing to impact their communities. And, and some of the amazing things they're doing, whether it's, working with LGBT rights or homeless shelters, women's shelters, just a variety of things that they're doing and gaining more and more involvement in local politics. So those are great things. And so I think it's important for the Secular Student Alliance to be reflective of that, to help them create those endeavors and encourage them in their own communities, and to be a catalyst for that. And I think, for the secular movement as a whole, this is, a clear indication of the future leadership of not only the secular movement, but I think of, also of our country, of where they're going and what they deem as important. So I think that's really good.
Excellent. Now, I'm kind of curious, at least from the olden days when the SSA started out, it was kind of more of a reaction against religion, and that's great fun and all, and I still love that, and I think it should be part of the SSA, but there's also the need to stand for something. So I'm delighted to hear, things are going to be implemented and, put in place that, I guess, students are going to stand for things. But I'm assuming the groups are still going to be free to go out and protest and say that religion is wrong, because that's a sweet spot for me.
They definitely are. The student organizations are, somewhat autonomous from the national, they're specifically like that to deal with the issues that are in their particular areas. And yes, I think there still is, especially now within our society, we need to keep pushing for the separation of church and state. And as I refer to the continually blurring lines between religion and politics. And I think those are some clear issues that are very important to our students. And I think that, SSA will continue to be an umbrella for different aspects within the secular movement. And I think that's important. And, and even looking at the individual student level, our student organizations for, students that are coming in and still are, wanting to question and have conversations and sort of figure out where they are with their religious or non-belief, SSA provides an important environment for them to have that conversation in a safe place and to be able to make those decisions for themselves. So I think yes, I think a lot of our student leaders who have been involved in the movement and who are very comfortable where they are as individuals are really excelling and moving forward in sort of social justice and equality. We still have a place, one, of dealing with where we currently are in our political situation and making sure that we are working with the students who are still figuring this all out. And so we have to be that umbrella for everything, I think.
Well, one of the things I know I love, I've done this long enough, and I've been involved with SSA. In case my listeners don't know, I've been on the board of directors for SSA twice for almost a total of 5 years. And currently not now. So, but when I go to conferences sometimes, or even other events, I run into people, full-grown adults who used to be in a college SSA, and they now have jobs and careers, and some of them are starting families. Some of them are working within the movement. It's an organization that really makes a difference for a lot of people that maybe felt like they were outside of the norm, especially if you're in kind of the Bible Belt area or a really highly religious area. I don't know about Columbus, but, I just moved from Champaign, and Champaign was pretty okay. But, there's places in Kentucky and Alabama and Mississippi where it's really tough. What does the group provide for those people in your perspective, your view?
As you were talking about this, the one story that sort of struck me is when we just held our student leadership conference this week in Columbus, having about 200 students there. And I think for a lot of those, and granted, these are mostly student leaders within their SSAs, so, they're used to the topic and being open and out. But we had, just one student in particular, and there are other stories like this, but one student who at the end of the conference didn't want to leave Columbus and actually sat in her car for a couple hours, not wanting to go back home to Kentucky because she knew of of the environment that awaited her when she got back. And so I think, the SSAs on campus and what the Secular Student Alliance provide just in general is that safe space for a lot of people who don't live in open environments to have a safe space to be with other people who think like them, and to get out of that sort of oppressive nature of largely religious people who aren't as friendly. And so I think it's a valuable, it's not service, I want to call it, that the SSA offers for a lot of people. So I think that's important as well.
Well, years ago, I coined the term PCD, that's post-convention depression.
Yes.
And that is, you leave the convention, and like the student you were describing, I've had this experience where I've gone to a national convention, and everyone there is so friendly, so open, and you can speak freely, maybe for some people for the first time, and then you have to go back. And up until recently, I've had the luxury of going back to Champaign, Illinois, the home of the University of Illinois. People from all over the world, every different religion, culture, language, food. It was fantastic. And I moved to New Lenox, Chicago suburb, and it apparently, unbeknownst to me in advance, thank you very much, it's the Bible Belt of Chicago. And it's like 99.5% white, and it's all about America. And so it's a little bit of a shock for me to go out in public and realize that, wow, a lot of people do have to deal with this all over the country. You don't just have to be in the Bible Belt in the South. But I know that this summer you were planning to do kind of an outreach, I guess kind of a, what was it called? A listening tour where you're going to meet with different organizations and what was called stakeholders and maybe some donors. Can you tell us about those plans and what your rest of your summer is going to be like?
Sure. And I think I've already started kicking that off a little bit. I went to the Secular Coalition of America's Lobby Day about, I guess, almost a month ago now. And so that was a great chance for me to meet a lot of the other leadership within the secular movement and of the other organizations. So really valuable time. And just as a side note, you mentioned students from the Secular Student Alliance clubs being involved in the movement. It was really interesting to meet and see all the people who were involved in their SSA and now are involved in almost every single organization within the secular movement. So I think that's a proud little task for us to be able to help contribute to that and also have students find a place in continuing their activism within the movement. Clearly our student conference this weekend was a great place for me to get to start talking with students, hearing their stories, finding out more what the national office can do to assist them, where they're going and what they're looking at. And then just, some of the other organizations of how we can work better, whether it's, the Black Nonbelievers or the Humanists, the Sunday Assembly. And so some great conversations there. I will be going to the American Atheist Conference in South Carolina. And then we look at doing Netroots also a little bit later, more of a progressive sort of conference after that. And then right now we're working on getting a list of schools in the upcoming fall in September for me to start visiting, one, to see them on the ground, what they're doing in person and how they're working, and be able to talk to more students directly with that. And I think, as you mentioned, there's different parts of the country, students are facing some different issues, and so I want to make sure that I have a better understanding of what they're dealing with and how the national office at the Secular Student Alliance can help with that.
Well, I know one of the things that I was concerned with when I was on the board is that Secular Student Alliance provides a service to students who generally don't have money, so they can't pay like membership dues, or at least not big membership dues like a lot of the national organizations do. So where does the money come from, and how are you going to get more of it?
The students don't pay any sort of membership fee, so all of our students have free membership to the Secular Student Alliance. And that's really why donations to the organization are extremely important. So we have a great base of donors, sometimes long, some of them long donors to the organization and contributors to the mission of the organization. And so, one of my first, duties as the executive director is really reaching out to a lot of our major donors. One, thanking them. And then also, trying to get some perspective on what's important to them about the organization, why they give, so we can start, having a great relationship and continuing what SSA has been doing, and continuing that for the future. So we are always looking for donations from individuals and foundations to help with our work, and we strongly encourage people to do that, and are very thankful when people do. So it's very easy to go to our website at secularstudents.org and to make an ongoing or one-time donation.
Well, of course, one of the things I regularly do for listeners is I encourage them to go make donations. So please visit the secularstudents.org website, and you can find the links. They're not hidden or anything, and make some donations. I wanted to circle back to the American Atheist thing. I, of course, will be there, so please feel free to say hello.
Definitely.
I was wondering if at the very end of July, 28th and 29th, if you didn't have plans already, I would invite you to come to St. Louis for the Gateway to Reason conference.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me know about that. I will definitely look into it.
Yeah,
we're currently, we have a schedule that we're working with some of our donors, so if that fits in, that would be great to attend.
It's last minute for you, but it's a nice big conference of kind of who's who in the secular/atheistic movement, and it's in St. Louis. And so if you're, visiting Columbus, getting things ready, you could theoretically drive over, or it's a very short plane ride, so it's not too bad. And then you said in the fall you're going to do a tour of the groups. That sounds fantastic. Do you know any cities yet, or is that still in the works?
That's all still in the works. I'm working with the staff currently to put together a list of the student organizations to go and visit. And then clearly, before we announce anything, we need to obviously confirm with the student organizations and those sorts of things. But yeah, so that'll give me a nice experience with the students across the country.
Well, it sounds like you've got the management thing down, because you're going to talk to the donors, the people that have the money, the organizations, making sure you understand your place, where you currently are, what the students are doing, what they might want. Any plans going forward? Do you know what might change, or is that still to be determined?
As far as with the organization itself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious, or the events that SSA sponsors, those kind of things.
Right now, the conference is one of our main programs, and clearly we'll be offering that in the summer. Our scholarships, and we have, those will be continuing. And then every year the staff has a calendar for the student organizations with suggested events and those sorts of things. A lot of those we help provide material and education for. So the staff is currently coming up with that list. I think for me, so there's a lot of that will continue and be very much the same. And we'll be looking at how we can kind of sort of increase our support for the student organizations. I think some of the things for me coming in will be looking at, we've had that ongoing support for the student organizations and working with the student organizations directly. We want to also start more of a dialogue and working with the advisors. So as the students continue to change, throughout their experience in college, the advisors to the groups act a little bit more as a constant. And so we can add some support for the students themselves by engaging a little bit more with the advisors. And then we also really want to engage with the student affairs and religious affairs staff at colleges and universities. I think, when you start to share some of the statistics of how many of their students, are nuns, non-believers, atheists, humanists, free thinkers, they really start to take notice because it's a substantial portion of their population. And so if we can help them be more inclusive, provide them with some language that makes sure that secular students know that they're invited and encouraged and celebrated in those realms, then secular students will be more involved. And so if we can help, especially on college campuses, make it so that if they're talking about religion and they're also then including the secular perspective and inviting the secular students to be involved. And that helps. And I don't like the word normalize, but normalize the secular experience into that religious experience as another viable option. So and I think doing that, we really help to start change the campus community as a structural whole and making it easy then for really all students, and especially the students involved in the SSA, to be active and involved on campus. So that's something that we'll start doing and pushing out this year in the new academic year.
Another one of my favorite activities, events, programs from the SSA is the Secular Safe Zone. How is that going, and what are your plans with that?
The Secular Safe Zone is been around for a number of years now, and there's been a little less focus on it recently. The Florida has really been sort of the main in keeping the program active and going, and they've started training some other individuals to be able to facilitate trainings, to other people. So we're going to be looking at having conversation and how we can start moving that forward again and expanding that program.
Well, for the listeners who don't know, that is similar to the zones that are created for students who are questioning their sexual preferences and or identities anywhere from college to high school, where a teacher might identify their office or their classroom as a secular safe zone. And if you have questions about religion, you could talk to that individual. Does that sound correct?
Definitely. And it's really model a lot after the safe zone for the LGBT community.
Right.
And back in the day, I was actually part of the original training for that. So I'm glad to see that we.
Well, I know I have on rare occasions been in a high school. I know when we had an exchange student with us from Chile that I went to the high school, and I would see the safe zone signs everywhere. And just having been in high school myself, a few years earlier, a long time ago, that would have never happened. Never, ever, ever would have happened. And there's probably a lot of places today it still won't happen. But it was fantastic. And I want to see the secular safe zones like that in almost every high school across the country, where a student can say, I have a question about religion. And they don't go to a teacher to get deconverted, but they go to a teacher that might even be a very religious and devout teacher, but they can stand aside of their own beliefs and allow the student to ask questions and allow the student to talk and express themselves, so they don't feel like there's no one they can talk to. Because as best as I can remember being a teenager, that feeling that there's no one you can talk to is very, very troubling.
Definitely, and I think high school and even still in college, I think people find it difficult to have those conversations. Our staff was recently at NASPA, which is one of the institutions in higher education, and they had a conference specifically on convergence and talking about religion. And our staff was there and presented on reaching out to atheist students and non-believers. And again, having that language, talking about the secular safe zone, talking about inclusion and the demographics and needs of sort of non-theist students. And so it was extremely well received. And by far, the vast majority of everyone at the conference comes from a strong religious background. And I think more and more, religious people are understanding that this is a viable option, and that students are exploring these issues, and we need to give them that place to do that. And I think you'll find more and more religious staff on campuses that are much more open to having those conversations.
Well, that is fantastic. Any new programs? I mean, you're just in the job a couple of weeks, so I'm kind of making it rough for you. Anything else you have planned?
Right now, that's sort of what we have talked about and moving forward with. Clearly, as I get better in the position, and as after the change in Los Angeles, we'll be looking at moving forward on some new initiatives and some, as we think are going to be beneficial to the organization and to the students. So we plan on sharing more later. Oh,
I do know that the SSA has kind of dabbled with high school groups. Is that something, do you think they still plan to support, helping groups get started in high schools?
We definitely do. High schools are a little bit more challenging than college students, but we definitely continue to engage with high schools. We'll actually be kicking off sort of a campaign for the new school year on social media, so especially targeting younger people, to just let them know that our organizations exist across the country, and is sort of sharing some of our ideals and values, and letting them know to join an SSA, or if there's not one on their campus or in their school, to go ahead and start one. And so we did a nice little video project with the students at our leadership conference this past weekend. And so we're actually working on creating that video now.
Yeah, I know it's one of the things that I've perceived as a weakness with the Secular Student Alliance, and you already addressed one of those issues, is trying to work with advisors, because sometimes even a college group, but especially a high school group, is kind of a cult of personality. There's one or two or a handful of people that run it, and they graduate. And that continuation has always been a challenge. So I recommend anyone that's listening that has your own community group, non-college, non-high school group, get involved and see how you can help your local Secular Student Alliance organization so that you can be there for them in case they have a time of need. You're not going to be able to tell them what to do because they're college students. They're going to do what they want to do, and that's what the SSA corporate is for. But be there to help them, be there to support, let them know that they can come to you if they need something. And if you're listening and you're in college, or if you're in high school, you're going to be in high school soon, make sure you go to the secularstudents.org website, and under the category for students and our groups, you can get a group starting guide, and it gives you all the information. And, of course, you can call the lovely people over there like Kevin and say, how do I get started, right?
Definitely. We strongly encourage that. And we're currently working on a new website. I think that, when you were on the board, the website probably still looks very much the same. So we're doing a nice little update on that very soon. So don't judge us when you go to the website. Just know there's lots of good information on there.
It's interesting. I had that thought, but I wasn't going to say it. It's perfectly functional, but it does look a little dated to me, only because I've been familiar with it for a long time. And in kind of a way, it's a delight for me to look at some of the images, because I know a lot of the students, even though I haven't been on the board for years. So I recognize people in the pictures, which is kind of cool for me. But it's been several years, so I probably shouldn't recognize too many anymore. So yeah, there's a little freshening up that can be done, but it's not bad. It's definitely functional. So I don't want anyone to get scared away. But yeah, you're right. A little refresh would be nice.
It has a nice retro look to it, so we're working on updating that as well.
Well,
but yes, there's lots of information on there, and how to get students involved, how to get involved, where we have student organizations currently, how to start a student organization, so how to donate, so lots and lots of good information.
It's funny, when I came out with my updated logo many years ago, some people said it looks like something from the 70s or the 80s, and I said excellent. And they're like, well, don't you want your logo to be fresh and hip? And I said, I'm generally not trying to appeal to fresh and hip people that are 20 because they don't have any money to invest. So if my logo appeals to people who are in their 50s or 60s, that's great, because those are people that usually have some funds to invest with me. So, we all have different goals and agendas.
All different target markets.
That's right. Well, Kevin, anything that we didn't cover?
I think we got a lot in, so I really appreciate being able to talk with you.
Well, thank you for coming on the Phil Ferguson Show. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What will Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it?
I will basically, what's known as theodicy, I think. I'll say, bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I would say.
And you think you're going to get in on
No,
that?
but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it, because the Greeks they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-beneficent, because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac. Utter maniac. Totally selfish. We have to spend our life on our knees thanking him? What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why? Why did you do that to us? You could easily have made a creation in which that didn't exist. It is simply not acceptable.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
All right, everybody. We're getting to the part of the show we're going to wrap up, and I've got a couple of different things. First of all, Gateway to Reason. If you're getting the show pretty close to its release date, a Gateway to Reason is going to be in just a couple of days. It is July 28th through 30th, so you're going to want to go. And I'm just going to rattle off some of the speakers here. Mandisa Thomas, David Fitzgerald, Matt Dillahunty, Shelley Siegel, Rebecca Vitzman, Alex Jules, me, Phil Ferguson. Keith Little Jensen is going to be there. David Smalley, John Loftus, James Croft, Margaret Downey. I'm just kind of skimming these, so please forgive me if I skip you. David McAfee. I don't think I've seen him in person. I'm so excited about that. He's been on the show. Noel George. Seth Andrews, who is not the Thinking Atheist. That's just a platform that he runs. He always likes to. Sam Singleton, the Evangelical Atheist, which I love. Aaron Ra, and many others. So this is an incredible deal. I am a proud sponsor of this. And as a reminder, we had Thomas True on, I think a couple times earlier this season. Last year, the conference ended up being canceled. This year, there is a major sponsor, a major funder, an underwriter, a benefactor, whatever you want to call it. And it is not me. Thank you very much. But it is someone who is guaranteed that this conference is going to happen. So it's going to happen no matter what. So if you're a little hesitant because of what happened last year, I get that. Now, here's the deal. Even with all of that, the ticket sales are slow. It's not as many as people as they want, which the cool thing for you is that if you go, because there's not going to be 1,000 people there, you're going to have more access to these speakers and others than what you might normally get. So if you're anywhere in the Midwest, you're going to want to do this. You're going to want to go, make a plan, drive over, whatever, get your hotel. It's a hell of a deal, and it's not even that much money. Now, I have been talking to Thomas and the benefactor, and they have given me permission to let my listeners know that they now can get a special price, and that special price is half off. Okay, they're more concerned about putting butts in the seats than making a few bucks because the thing's underwritten. They don't need all the money, but they can't let you in for free. But they're going to do half off. So if you go to Gateway to Reason, that's just gateway2reason.com, all one word, and then click anywhere where it says buy tickets or sign up or register or whatever the freak it says on the website. And when you get to the part where you put in the discount code, you type in the word HALF, HALF. It's that simple, four-letter word that you're going to like, HALF. And you can not only get tickets, but you can get VIP tickets for half off. So please go check that out. I'd love to see you there. I want to have a big crowd. But you know what? If the crowd's modest size or even small, that's fine. That's more time I get to hang out with my good friends. A lot of these people I know. I'm going to be delighted to see them there. So if you want to go to Gateway to Reason, July 28th through 30th, check out their website, gateway2reason.com. Go buy tickets. And when it asks for your discount code, put in the word HALF, HALF. And as a listener to the Phil Ferguson Show, you're going to get in for half the price. So go check that out. Other fun things that we've got going on. Some people were kind enough since the last show to give me some reviews. There's four of them. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 at iTunes and 1 at Stitcher. The one at Stitcher is somebody that left the same review at iTunes, so I won't read both of them to you because they're the same. But thank you for leaving it in both places. I greatly appreciate it. And, of course, if you like the show, if you like listening to the show, if you found value, please go leave a review. And if you can give it 5 stars, that'd be really nice, too. It helps the show be seen and, I guess, heard by more people because iTunes and Stitcher and Spreaker will put it higher in the rankings. They will share it with more people. And matter of fact, since I mentioned rankings, over at Stitcher, the show is now number 36 in, what is this called? Religion and Spirituality? Spirituality and Religion category. So that is fantastic. I think that's the highest it's ever been. Not sure. I don't really log it or track it. Last couple times, I think it was in the 40s, but it's 36 this week. How they come up with these numbers, I do not know, but hopefully we can get a little higher. And of course, I think Stitcher does that based on downloads via Stitcher. So if you like the show, go download it at Stitcher, and maybe we can crack the top 10 in a few months. Who knows? So the reviews, let us do that. Let me click on this here. The first one, very, very concise. This is from West Coast Brian. His 5-star review is Kofefe. I'd like to tell you I know what that means, but I don't. But Brian, thanks for the 5 stars. I appreciate that very much. Another review is Presto H. Best of both worlds. Phil starts off with sound financial advice and his reasoning behind that advice, including the pros and cons, then talks about atheism and the latest news in the secular movement with informative interviews, calls to action, and at least one rant per podcast. Love it. Thank you, Presto H. Another one here is KY Physics Teacher. I'm assuming that's the state, not the jelly. 5-star review. Phil's investment strategies have caused me to rethink plowing all of my retirement savings into target date funds. His ideas of utilizing a 10-year cushion of short-term bonds alongside index equity funds for growth is the rational retirement portfolio that I have been seeking. He has also been kind enough to respond to a couple of my emails. Thank you, Phil. Well, not a problem, KY Physics Teacher. It is my pleasure to help. Last one, Sean's Plane. I think that's what that is. This show rocks. Recommend to everyone. Well, that's very, very sweet. Of course, if you are like the one reviewer here and you have questions, you may email me at Phil. I always hate to say at first. The email is phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. I will try to get to you. Maybe it's just a quick answer I can get to you. My time has gotten pretty busy. And just as a quick reminder, I do have a minimum for people to actually hire me. And unfortunately, I have to raise that again because I don't want to hire employees. I don't want to expand and deal with that. I have limited time and how many accounts I can have. So I'm going to have to raise my minimum again. So my apologies. The new minimum will be $500,000. So if you have below $500,000 and want to talk, I can spare some time. I think I can still fit somebody in, but I can't take the time to go through the whole process that I have because it's kind of lengthy to get you set up, to know you, to get all the forms set up and all that. I have to be able to have time to provide the service that other people are already paying me for. If you have under $500,000 and you're already a client of Polaris Financial Planning, you're fine. You don't have to meet the 500 to stay. Of course, I might call and harass you like I do with everybody. Save more money, save 20%. But if you're not already a client, you will need $500,000 going forward. If you have already talked to me or you're on my list of people that were interested, I'm not going to cut you out. But new contacts, people have after July, middle of July in 2017, regrettably, I have to raise the minimum to $500,000 just because I'm running out of time. I can only do so much. So wanted to make sure that was known. Otherwise, I'll see you at Gateway to Reason. I'll also be at the American Atheist Conference for their solar eclipse later in the year. And I am now definitely going to the FFRF, Freedom from Religion Foundation Conference in Madison, Wisconsin. And I'm sure I'll give you more information on that coming up. But the one that's coming up right away, Gateway to Reason in St. Louis, July 28th. Please go sign up and get half off by using the discount code half. I hope to see you there. Please feel free to come up to me and say hello. And until then, ciao.
Sexual advances are not appealing. In fact, I'm starting to get the uh-oh feeling. And my mama said my special parts are just for me. So why in the world are you trying to creep?
Stop! Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square. Stop! Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square.
To try and touch my square takes a lot of nerve. Who do you think you are, you freaky deaky perv? There's a dude with some candy in a shady old van. I think he wants to mess with my purity plan.
Stop! Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square. Stop! Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square.
square is not a circle or a period or dot. It's just my one little very own spot. So keep your grubby little dirty little hands off me while I want to respect my privacy. I just want to be left all alone, so step off me and go back home. I'll tell you again if you're not aware that this is my own no-no square.
Stop! Don't touch me there. This is my no-no square. Stop!